Oh, it's up from here. I know what you're thinking.
When you're down and out, and there seems no hope at all.
But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall.
Okay, maybe not all those combos have worked out. Hi, welcome to Street Politics. My name is Reese Waters. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the page. Now, have you ever thought about what it might look like if this
President of the United States has committed? But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence of our national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.
ever teamed up with this.
He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Oh, it's up from here. I know what you're thinking.
When you're down and out, and there seems no hope at all.
But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall.
Okay, maybe not all those combos have worked out well, but I am hopeful as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has been named the co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign. And one thing it definitely speaks to is the changing face of the Democratic Party.
And for a long time, there's been this conversation about the old guard and the new guard and things like that. And so as we saw a changing of the guard with President Biden handing it off to Vice President Kamala Harris, I think what you also see is someone who also appreciates the younger guard, even younger than her, having a perspective. And, you know, while I was at DNC and had an opportunity to share a little bit about how our relationship started, most will probably start to assume that, you know, our relationship only grew from there, and that is true.
Now, Crockett hit the ground running like she always does, absolutely ethering J.D. Vance for these comments.
So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. Randi Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
Go, get him.
The guy is a weirdo. It's really quite simple, you know, and I thought that it was a really good point that was raised about those sisters that teach kids like me, because I actually went to Catholic middle school. So I absolutely know what that's like. And so I am curious to know what he thinks. But we also know that they have been pushing the Project 2025 agenda. And a lot of that agenda kind of has their own definition of what Christianity looks like and what Christian families look like and what we all should be doing. And I don't think that that's inclusive of Catholicism and the Muslim folk, as well as atheist folk, everybody else, even though we supposedly have this thing called freedom of religion in this country.
Now, speaking of the changing face of the Democratic Party, it's not just the representatives, it's the constituency as well. They've been reaching out in states that were previously thought to be non-competitive that have all of a sudden become swing states and bettering their communication and messaging to rural America and letting you know they're not like us.
But here's the reality. We are just not having the conversations with rural America that we should be having, because we do have an agenda that is actually about bettering their lives. When we look at the broadband access that's been brought to rural America, that was brought by Democrats in the House and the Senate and a Democratic administration. That means better access to healthcare. That means better access to jobs. That means better access to education. A lot of times, as someone who lived in East Texas, I know that we are limited to whichever plant is set up in that community. And if that plant closes, then that potentially decimates all of your economic opportunities.
Yeah, so first of all, they've got to go and talk to everyone and meet them exactly where they are. You know, a lot of times people want the people to come to them. One of the things that I've done is I've gone out to the concerts and I've gotten on stages with these large crowds where they're definitely not looking to hear from a politician, and been able to deliver a message. And so what we're experiencing now is that just this week, they are out in Georgia, but they're not just in Atlanta. They are going to rural Georgia. And I think that that's one of the things that we really have to dig into. If we're going to lose rural America, we need to at least stop the bleeding a little bit. But the reality is that our policies are better for rural America. Take, for example, here in Texas, we know that in rural Texas, we've got hospitals that are shutting down. That's because the Republican-led House, Senate, and the governor refused to expand upon Medicaid, therefore depleting these hospitals of the resources that they need to stay open. Why is it that your life expectancy in rural Texas should be lessened than what it is in urban Texas? It is because of the policies that they're pushing forward with. In addition to the fact that we expanded upon things such as broadband. Broadband means that if you can't go into that doctor's office because you don't have as many doctors in rural Texas, guess what? Now you can hopefully access them on your cell phone. Or, you know, I lived in East Texas, so I know what it's like, where you're relying upon, say, the international plant or international paper plant, or you're relying upon the chicken plant and things like that. And every time there's a threat, or the tire plant, a threat to shut one of those down, it literally can decimate the economy. But with us expanding upon broadband, and this was something that Democrats did, this now means that you can too work from home, and things such as the Farm Bill. So we have an actual message. It's just a matter of we've not actually gone in to inform rural America of the fact that we are fighting for you. We don't just decide to get into office and govern only for a specific segment. We are the type of people that govern for all Americans. And I think that that's really going to be one of the big differences, is that they not only have the energy, but they are actually working for it. When we win in November, it will be because we fought and we earned the win, not because we sat back at Mar-a-Lago hoping that cameras would come to us.
And being from Texas, she had to address the actions by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Governor Greg Abbott, and how that projects forward.
The only regret will be that I didn't give it my all. Everyone that I talk to, I tell them we've got to run through the tape. We can't take anything for granted. We can't look at these polls and get excited. We can't look at how many people are showing up to the rallies and get excited, because ultimately the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. And so I don't want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now going in and they are perpetrating raids on elderly women that are simply just trying to do their part for democracy. We are facing some really ugly and negative forces that are doing everything that they can to hold on to power. And so for me, if I laid back and, as Tim Wall says, goes to sleep, he says we can sleep when we dead. I tell people I'm the walking dead right now because I'm not getting sleep, but it's just that important.
I actually just did a video all about this.
Early morning raids and utter confusion left even abuelitas standing on the sidewalks in their pajamas. So now a prominent Latino advocacy group is accusing the Texas Attorney General of voter intimidation and calling on the DOJ to do something about it. AG Ken Paxton's office executed a series of raids on the homes of Democratic leaders and activists, most of them Latino, in what he describes an ongoing probe into voter fraud. But here's the backstory in case you're not very familiar with Paxton. He's been an outspoken election denier and has also been accused of a wide range of misconduct, narrowly dodging an impeachment and even a criminal trial.
As opposed to honestly trying to attract voters, you engage in voter intimidation and voter suppression. Is there a bigger red flag to your platform than that? You have just ceded there is no way anybody with an operable brain would look at our platform and say, yeah, that's the way I want to go, so I'm just going to make sure that they can't vote. The link will be in the description. One of the criticisms that I myself level at visible members of the other side of the aisle is they do it for the clout.
You think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection.
I reclaim my time.
Objection.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in
Gentlelady will
prison.
suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor as a doctor.
And that's only supported by the fundraising numbers of the wildest MAGA members on Capitol Hill. And if you were wondering just exactly what Jasmine Crockett is doing for her district.
But it's been an honor because, listen, this district has been in great hands for so long. The one thing that I didn't want to do was let her down, but I also didn't want to let the district down. They trusted her when she said, this is my pick. And I wanted to make sure that they understood that even as she was leaving Congress, that she was still doing everything that she could to be in service to Texas 30. So we've been able to bring a historic amount of money to the district. Now, I have to be perfectly honest and tell you that if it wasn't for the Biden-Harris administration and the democratically controlled House and Senate in the 116th Congress, then I wouldn't have been able to pull down on these dollars. But working very closely with all of my city elected officials, my mayors, the city councils, working with our county government, I'm just really blessed that I actually have some of the best elected officials on the face of the planet, because what they do is they reach out. Because as most know, I spent a lot of time in DC and now I spend a lot of time on the road. But I can't know what it is that they really need if they're not communicating. So we have great working relationships that's allowed us to do things such as pull down money from the Inflation Reduction Act that would start to right some of the wrongs as it relates to environmental injustice issues, which our district has been the target of for so long, whether we're talking about clean air, clean water, or if we're talking about clean soil. I believe that the people in my district should not have their life expectancy cut short because different corporations have decided that we would be a dumping grounds. And this administration has invested a historic amount of money in doing that. And with our regional administrator Nance, we've been able to pull down on those dollars as well as try to move into the future. One of the last things that I did was there was about a $2 million investment that's being made right there in Cedar Hill. And this is to replace 10 school buses that are diesel with 10 clean, fully electric buses. So not only kind of correcting the wrongs, but also trying to look towards the future. Reconnecting communities is another amazing thing that we were able to do in a historic fashion. We ended up with $80 million the vast majority of that 80 million came directly to Texas 30, and no other district got any of that money. That came from Department of Transportation. This, again, is looking at wrongs that have been done historically to Black and brown communities. And so with highways that were set up in decimated communities, we're now reconnecting communities. And so it was amazing to have Secretary Pete Buttigieg come in. But that was one of the third largest grants that was given out in the entire country, and it came right here to Texas 30. The final thing that I'll say about something historic that we've been able to do is ARPA-H. And so as we saw what happened in COVID-19 and the fact that we were behind the gun instead of being ahead of it, this administration wants to make sure that we stay ahead of whatever threats are looming, bio or otherwise. And so there were 3 facilities that were authorized, multi-billion-dollar facilities. 2 of those facilities went into blue states. The third one came not only to Texas, but it came to Texas 30, and it is the Customer Experience Hub. This means that as we are doing trials, they will be more diverse because we're bringing the trials to the diverse space instead of always kind of putting the trials wherever and hoping diversity will show up. So it's amazing. Now, that's one of those things that will fly under the radar because it will take years before people truly understand the impact. But I felt like it was really important. We're talking about more jobs, and we're also talking about a little bit more access to healthcare in the form of hopefully participating in some trials.
Now, if there is anybody in Washington we can trust to properly address what happened at Arlington Cemetery, is Jasmine Crockett. I did my part.
All I do is I stood there and I said, if you'd like to have a picture, we can have a picture. If somebody did it, this was a setup by the people in the administration that, oh, Trump is coming to Arlington. That looks so bad for us.
Bullshit. Straight up bullshit.
The man who doesn't respect women, he doesn't respect black people, he doesn't respect Latinos, he doesn't respect journalists, he don't respect doctors, he don't respect scientists, he don't respect the disabled, he don't respect children, he don't respect diplomats, he don't respect football players, he don't even respect his own hair.
He insulted everybody in that room. And I said, somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, you know, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, you know, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that? I need to know why any of y'all expected this man to respect the military. He don't respect nothing. That's why we voting blue. Now take us home.
They're kind of doubling down on it, and they're saying that the worker at Arlington National Cemetery was having a mental health issue and sort of attacking that person. I'm curious your reaction.
I mean, it's the same old games with these guys, you know, like they don't abide by norms. They don't abide by the law. And honestly, anyone that tries to enforce any rules upon them, they literally just steamroll them and they act as if they were all right. It's really unfortunate, especially when you have someone that is running to be the most powerful person in the world, to know that they literally just have no appreciation for basic norms. This is not the party of law and order. I think that we know that. That may have been who the Republicans used to be, but MAGA definitely is not that.
It is absolutely wild to me that the answer to angering folks in the military by your lack of respect at Arlington Cemetery is to attack the workers at Arlington Cemetery. Like, that really speaks to just how invulnerable and invincible they feel. They don't feel subject to anybody's rules and regulations. They don't feel subject to anybody's standards of decorum. Oh, you think I offended the military? All right, I'm gonna offend the military. What I really appreciated about hearing from Congresswoman Crockett this particular time around is the fact that they are intentionally reaching out to everybody. If you heard any of the lives that I've done, especially, or some of the videos I've done going back months, I have lamented the fact that the messaging on the left side of the aisle has been failing to communicate to these people just how not for you they are. And they're actually trying to close that gap. And if it's anybody you could trust with messaging, it's Jasmine Crockett.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, the question before us is, will a vindictive, vile villain violate voters' vision?
This is exactly what they needed. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and especially those of you that have liked and subscribed to the page. Did y'all know I had a website? I know, it's so kind of old-fashioned these days. Yes, I have a website, reesewaters.com. There you'll find my most recent work, but also my past work if you want to know a little bit more about me. You'll also find a portal where you could sign up for my newsletter. You could also sign up by sending me an email at reese@reesewaters.com. You could also send me any suggestions for ideas, something I need to take a look at, or you just want to say hello. And by the way, if you go to the website now, you'll find a little something special. That's right, we got merch. There's mugs there, there's t-shirts there, there's hats there, repping street politics, troubled waters, and of course, Racist of the Week. Where would we be without Racist of the Week? I don't know that I would have any content.
He can go and cower in a corner, or he can show up and be lit on fire. Either way, I'm good.
Welcome to Street Politics. My name is Reese Waters. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the page. For now, it looks like we're actually going to get a debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. But do you think he's actually going to show up?
Do you think Donald Trump shows up September 10th?
No, but if he does show up, he is about to get his butt handed to him. So I'm here for it either way. He can go and cower in a corner, or he can show up and be lit on fire. Either way, I'm good.
I would tend to agree. I mean, we've all seen how Kamala handles her business in interrogation.
Attorney General Barr, has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will repeat it.
Yeah.
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but
Perhaps they've suggested?
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
Hinted?
I don't know.
Inferred? You don't know? Okay. In your March 24th summary, you wrote that, quote, after reviewing the special counsel's final report...
But I will say that no one...
Sir, I'm asking a question. Did you personally review all of the underlying evidence?
No, we took and accepted...
Did Mr. Rosenstein?
No, we accepted the statements in the report as the factual record. We did not go underneath it to see whether or not they were accurate. We accepted it as accurate. And made our,
so you accepted the report as the evidence?
Yes.
You did not question or look at the underlying evidence that supports the conclusions in the report?
No.
As the Attorney General of the United States, you run the United States Department of Justice. If in any U.S. attorney's office around the country, the head of that office, when being asked to make a critical decision about, in this case, the person who holds the highest office in the land, and whether or not that person committed a crime, would you accept them recommending a charging decision to you if they had not reviewed the evidence?
Well, that's a question for Bob Mueller. He's the U.S. attorney. He's the one who presents the report.
But it was you who made the charging decision, sir.
What?
You made the decision not to charge the president.
No, in a Pross memo and in a declination memo.
You said it was your baby. What did you mean by that?
Man, Bill Barr ain't never been the same.
Wow, former AG Bill Barr, who let a lot of great people down by not investigating voter fraud in our country, has just endorsed me for president despite the fact that I called him weak, slow-moving, lethargic, gutless, and lazy. Based on the fact that I greatly appreciate his wholehearted endorsement, I am removing the word lethargic from my statement. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. It's classic Trump.
In fact, I made a whole video about it, naming him the saddest man in America.
But Alyssa Farah Griffin, who was Trump's communications director, posted yesterday and said that you were present at a moment when Trump suggested executing the person who leaked information that he went to the White House bunker when those George Floyd protests were happening outside the White House. Do you remember that?
I remember him being very mad about that. I actually don't remember him saying executing, but I wouldn't dispute it. I mean, it doesn't sound. The president would lose his temper and say things like that. I doubt he would have actually carried it out. I don't.
You doubt he would actually carried it out? You mean you're not sure? You're not sure? You doubt he would actually carry it out? Oh, I thought he was playing when he said that, but then I never saw Terry again. I got that one wrong. Yeah, I got that one wrong. And we've also seen how Trump handles being interrogated.
Met Ms. Carroll. You have since seen a photograph that shows you with Ms. Carroll on a receiving line.
Along with a lot of other people.
You have in front of you a black and white photograph that we've marked as DJT23. And I'm going to ask you, is this the photo that you were just referring to?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And do you recall when you first saw this photo?
At some point during the process, I saw it. That's, I guess, her husband, John Johnson, who was an anchor for ABC. Nice guy, I thought. I mean, I don't know him, but I thought he was pretty good at what he did. I don't even know who the woman. Let's see. I don't know who. It's Marla.
You say Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla, yeah. That's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here. Oh, is that?
The person you just pointed to was
I
E.
see.
Jean Carroll.
Who is that? Who is this?
Point, your wife. And the woman on the right is your then wife,
I don't know.
Ivana?
This was the picture.
Ivana.
I assume that's John Johnson. Is that?
That's Carroll.
Because it's very blurry.
If I was Trump, I would use this footage in divorce proceedings. Like I would use this in any of my cases with my ex-wives. Your Honor, I cannot distinguish one person from another. And no, it is not my fault that you caught us walking off that plane. I thought it was my wife. And apparently it hasn't gotten any better. You remember him confusing Kamala Harris with Melania, right?
And I want you to listen to this.
I saw a picture of her on Time magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing, and actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman, so we'll leave it at that, right?
Okay, that's another pronunciation of her name, Camilla. Guys, what? What?
Now, if we think this all the way through, are we about to get a flashback to the Trumps behind closed doors? He is unmistakably tied to Project 2025. 2025? How you know my phone lock code? Huh? Why you always going through my phone? What happened to trust in the relationship? The Harris campaign has appropriately taken the offensive on Donald Trump's half-stepping.
But because they already know everything. They say, oh, Trump's, not doing the debate. That's the same thing they'll say now. I mean, right now I say, why should I do a debate? I'm leading in the polls. And Everybody knows her, everybody knows me. But when I looked at the hostility of that, I said, why am I doing it? Let's do it with another network.
Now, one thing she will need to do is to balance the toughness that she has evoked to try and diminish the sexism that comes with running for office as a woman, and balance that with the compassion that she has shown, given all of the many people in her life that have come out and spoken about it, which makes Jasmine Crockett actually a very unique person to speak to both of those qualities. A, because she has a personal relationship with Kamala Harris, but B, because she's also somebody that has shown incredible toughness.
Thank you so much for that. Because honestly, if they would continue to say if or Hunter and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now. Because I promise you, they have not talked about the subject of this, which would be the president. But let me tell you something that was so disturbing as I walked in to this chamber today. As I prepared, I said, what is the crime? Because when you're talking about impeachment, you're talking about high crimes or misdemeanors. And I can't seem to find the crime. And honestly, no one has testified of what crime they believe the president of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me.
But also revealed her compassion at the DNC, which, by the way, was something that I reacted to. In fact, I called it jarring, which, although it was, is something that I actually need to speak a little bit more to, because we need to give people the freedom to be three-dimensional. Yes, the person who's out here giving B6 the business is also the person that has the compassion to do right by the people in her jurisdiction. And in fact, beyond her jurisdiction. She spoke to that directly.
When I first got to Congress, I wasn't sure I made the right decision. As I approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, she turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" I immediately began crying. The most powerful woman in the world wiped my tears and listened.
Let's bring in Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Claire and Mara are also back with us. Congresswoman, good to see you. That moment from your speech where you talked about the authenticity and the humanity of Kamala Harris. You said she's the only candidate in this race capable of empathy. How do you help voters understand something that Doug Emhoff said in his speech, which is her empathy is her strength?
Yeah, I think that I am kind of the outward expression of that, right? Because she doesn't just use it to guide her when it comes to the legislative results that she's seeking. She also uses it to empower others. I truly was like a fish out of water when I first got to Congress, and I really had more questions than answers. And, you know, when people talk to me about that speech, they're like, we saw a side of you that we've never seen. Most people had not seen that side of me. And it was the side of me that actually had questions and was doubtful. But I can tell you without any question or any uncertainty that she has had that type of empathetic leadership that has empowered so many other leaders beyond just myself.
I would also add, as Black women, I, for one, need to be a little bit more mindful of the ways in which we discuss them, because we all know of that angry Black woman trope, which completely obscures the massive well of compassion that is needed to be a Black woman in today's society without making you want to holler. Now, for me, anytime we can get Donald Trump talking, quite frankly, is a good thing, which tells you everything you need to know about the man the GOP has chosen to stand behind.
Congresswoman, veteran political reporter Jonathan Martin this week said of your GOP colleagues on the Hill, quote, "Let's be brutally honest. If you took a survey of the Republican conference on Capitol Hill and said, would you prefer Trump to play golf for the rest of the campaign and let his campaign drive the message, or have Donald Trump do events, we all know which they'd prefer." Is he right?
Absolutely. Let him go play golf. every time he opens his mouth, the truth comes out, and the truth is not a pretty thing. The truth is tied to the agenda of Project 2025. The truth is tied to his history as it relates to discriminating against people of color when it came to housing, or when it came down to how he wanted the Central Park 5 hung. The truth only hurts him. So yeah, they want him to shut up and allow them to kind of continue on so that they can continue to deceive people into believing that these two candidates both have something wonderful to offer this country, when we know that there's only one candidate that is qualified and only one candidate that is interested in moving our country forward instead of moving us back to the Jim Crow era of the 1950s and 60s.
Just imagine that. One of our major political parties has elected to back a man that is a liability every time he opens his mouth. In fact, the only reason why they might even show up to the debate is because they got nothing to lose, because it's a hole in that bucket of campaign support. Also, shout out to Jasmine Crockett, who always gets it right for that Shirley Chisholm picture behind her, repping the first African-American woman in Congress in 1968, and the first woman and African-American to seek the nomination for president from one of our two major political parties. Now, I'm going to get back to the question that I opened with. Do y'all think Trump actually shows up?
I can tell you this. I don't blame Donald Trump for not wanting to debate Kamala. I've been married to a black woman for 40 years and I ain't won one debate. I'm owing $93,000.
I won't believe it till I see it. I won't believe it until the first question is asked of Donald Trump. I won't believe it till the first commercial break. I won't believe it until the closing credits. I won't believe it until the 10-minute fact check that CNN runs on Trump 3 hours after the debate is over. Getting Trump talking might be the only thing that can set our mentally trapped brothers and sisters free.
I just got off the phone with my boy Quan. He said he voted for Trump because Trump gave him that $1,200 stimulus check. I looked it up. It was 4 years ago. That's 1,600 days. $1,200. That's 75 cents a day for just 75 cents a day. Trump bought your vote. Tried to tell him it wasn't even Trump that gave us the checks. It was the Democrats in Congress. Trump fought it the whole way. He hung up the phone. Called me back. He said, if you trying to convince me not to vote for Trump, it didn't work. You know what else don't work? You still on that 75 cents a day. Black man, I want you to be released from the hold that 75 cents has. Speak with me, hold my hand. You didn't even get the whole 1,200. You got 600 of that. What did you do with that $600, Quan? That it was so memorable. You can't even feed the whole congregation with $600. You can't feed the whole church with $600. How many lemon pepper wings you get with $600? 300, maybe. Sister Bessie's eating half of those. Sister Bessie is eating half of those lemon pepper wings, Quan. I tried to tell him, I said, Kamala Harris is going for a middle-class tax cut. That means you wouldn't have to pay as much in taxes. He said, wait, which years do we have to pay taxes again? Is it the on year or the off year? I said, what? He said, you don't got to pay taxes every year, do you? I really thought about it. I was like, damn, he's too far gone.
But if that don't work, we moving on. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, because you're a... Sincere thanks to everybody who's reached out to me and submitted suggestions for videos. Keep them coming. I take submissions for ideas for a video, suggestions for Racist of the Week. If you have something that just troubles you, or you just want to send me a note, because I love getting those notes, go ahead and shoot me an email at reese@reesewaters.com. I also have a newsletter that I send out periodically, so you'll be receiving that as well. You can also sign up on my website, reesewaters.com. this is the kind of thing that you stumble on just because you happen to sit down and open up a conversation with an employee of color, how much more of this has been going on? Welcome to Racist of the Week. My name is Reese Waters, and this is where we expose the stupidity and hypocrisy of discrimination in hopes we can build a more perfect union. And also laugh. As usual, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Racism. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the page, and definitely leave me any possible suggestions for nominees in the comments. Now, those of you that have been following my account for a while, we used to be very heavily in the social justice space before we got more squarely into politics. And the reason for that was because after so much frustration of seeing the same stories over and over again, I thought it was fit to maybe adjust some of the systemic issues head on and the people responsible for those that were enabling this behavior on the street. And one of the things that I learned about black cops after seeing a number of incidents of brutality and mistreatment involving black police officers is that black cops are cops first, they are black second, and they are strip club patrons third. Oh yeah, y'all seen it. I'll be honest, I just finished watching We Own the City. Kind of weird what happened to Marlo, now that I think about it. But then I get stories like this. Today's nominee, the Hawaii Department of Law Enforcement. Now, the Hawaii Department of Law Enforcement is currently embroiled in a serious investigation into allegations of racial harassment within its own ranks, targeting a black officer, Martin Horton. The situation has resulted in the arrest of 4 sheriff's deputies, with an additional 9 officers placed on administrative leave pending further inquiry. You realize how bad racism has to be for anybody to be arrested for it, but especially for police to be arrested for it. How bad does racism have to be where you start arresting police? They don't even arrest police for loss of life. That's how bad this racism has to be. I would have guessed that maybe this is going on in some foreign country where they take this kind of thing seriously. But last I checked, Hawaii's still in America, right? Yeah, we still claim them. Yeah, we still claim them. That is wild. Now, the accusations detail a pattern of discriminatory behavior directed at Horton, a 56-year-old black officer undergoing training. Incidents reportedly occurred during routine field exercises where Horton endured the racist abuse. So they just started early. They just started during training. I guess that was to get him ready for the street. Is that what it is? We got to make sure he ready for the racist abuse he gonna get on the streets of Hawaii. Y'all have no idea how bad Oahu and Maui can get after dark. And it also makes me wonder where the other black officers were. I guess maybe they had gone through the same training and it had been normalized. The arrests included Deputy Sheriff William Keahi, who faces charges of reckless endangering and harassment, as well as Sergeants Eric Mitamura and Alvin Turla, both charged with racial misconduct-related harassment. Deputy Sheriff William Gary also faced harassment charges in connection with the same incidents, and this also triggered a broader examination into the department's organizational culture and practices, with the Criminal Investigations Division spearheading efforts to uncover any systemic issues. Any systemic issues? These are the people that are enforcing the laws on the streets. If this is how they're treating one of their own, I'm guessing it's some systemic issues. And wait a minute, was there a whistleblower who came forward who caught wind of this and said this is definitely wrong? No, it wasn't. He had to do it himself. I'm guessing there are some systemic issues. And you know what? If I was black in Hawaii, I would challenge all my tickets right now. Yeah, I would challenge my tickets. I would challenge my record. I would challenge everything. Now, Horton has accused Turla, his supervisor, amongst other things, of making a sexual comment about his lips, not once, but at least twice. See, I told you they'd be at the strip club. See, I told you they'd be there. I wasn't speaking out of my thong. I know from what I speak. Horton reported the disrespect to Sergeant Mitamura, whose response shocked him even more, saying his comment was, "You're nothing, you're no one." Now, Martin Horton, who bravely brought these issues to light, recounted enduring a series of degrading remarks and offensive treatment from colleagues ever since he started his tenure with the department. His complaints range from racial comments to instances where he was given orders that endangered his safety. Like, for instance, Kayahi, who was assigned to the airport division, allegedly put Horton's life at risk by ordering the man to rush into traffic at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport to stop a moving vehicle while on foot, which, by the way, violated safety policies. So he ordered him to violate safety policies by rushing into traffic to stop a moving vehicle while on foot. By the way, no non-black trainees ever received any orders, anything like this. And you have to think about what's going through Horton's head when he gets an order that he knows endangers his safety, but he doesn't want to be insubordinate. But he has a sneaking suspicion this is probably having to do with race because they led with comments about fried chicken and about his lips. I forgot about the fried chicken thing, but that kind of goes without saying when they're making racial comments. Think about the math that you have to very quickly do in your head before thrusting yourself in a potentially life-threatening scenario. Now, despite the emotional toll and concerns about potential retaliation against him and his family, Horton remains resolute that speaking out was necessary to address the misconduct. And you know what? I absolutely commend him because we have seen just how apprehensive officers have been about blowing the whistle on one another, even when circumstances affect them and their own safety. The department's swift response, including the arrest and placement of officers on leave, represents a significant step forwards towards addressing the broader issue of workplace harassment and discrimination, and I applaud them for that. However, challenges remain in ensuring a safe and inclusive environment for all officers, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds. And we see this at play with pilots, right? Where pilots was once an all-white bastion. It was once an all-white profession. And all of a sudden they opened it up because they wanted to diversify things. But all of a sudden the people who enter those ranks endure all kinds of abuse. They tell other people, you know what, it's really not an enjoyable experience. I appreciate being somebody that's achieved something, but there's many other ways that you can achieve things without having to endure this abuse. So it remains largely very white, including the idea that when we do have minorities that infiltrate those ranks, they have suspicion cast upon them about their qualifications. We have seen this with the explosion of allegations of DEI. Now, here's where we get good insight into our condition. Now, Horton, a disabled Navy veteran from Alabama, he's lived in Hawaii for 3 decades. Get this, he remains silent until the Criminal Investigations Division interviewed him about his experience so far at the Capitol. So this all came out because of an interview just about his experiences, which means he didn't think it was necessary to say anything because it had been so normalized and they had no idea. If this is the kind of thing that you stumble on just because you happen to sit down and open up a conversation with an employee of color, how much more of this has been going on? Horton said he was actually surprised by the intensity of the department's response, which has put him at odds with fellow officers, with Horton's family living in fear of retaliation. Horton is currently being provided extra protection for he and his family. Now, once again, I would like to place you in his situation. So he endured all of this abuse. He's asked about his experiences and he feels comfortable enough to be honest with them about his experiences and about the abuse that he endured that had been completely normalized, which nobody saw fit to blow the whistle on up until this point. Once he does that, they take swift action. Now he has to be concerned about the safety of himself and his family. And for what? For the crime of enduring the abuse and being honest about it. That is the experience that we have in 2024. He now has to be concerned about his family for being the victim of abuse. That is where we're at with our police departments across the country. Congratulations, Hawaii Department of Law Enforcement. you are our racist of the week. In fact, I should actually name these officers because the Department of Law Enforcement was actually the one that blew the whistle. So I am going to congratulate Deputy Sheriff William Keahi, Sergeants Eric Mitamura, Alvin Turla, and Deputy Sheriff William Gary. That also goes for everybody else that was placed on administrative leave and anybody else they might not have gotten to who just saw not fit to say anything. Congratulations, you are our racist of the week. As always, if you have somebody you would like to nominate, go ahead and leave it in the comments. You can email me at reese.waters@gmail.com. I may not get to all of your comments, but I do always get to my email. So feel free to email me if you have any suggestions for possible nominees or if you have any thoughts on this particular story. And be sure to subscribe to the page to make sure you get notified when the next video drops. Welcome to your Racist of the Month July compilation. All month we expose the stupidity and hypocrisy of discrimination in hopes we can build a more perfect union and also laugh. As always, I would like to thank our month-long sponsor, Racism. And as I'm sure you probably know, any month in which a black woman surges in the polls in her candidacy to become president is going to be a busy one for Racist of the Week. Although, to be fair, every month has been a busy one for Racist of the Week. We're going on 200 plus years. Every week has been busy for Racist of the Week. By the way, be sure to nominate who you think should be the special honoree. Yes, that person who was the racist of the whole month at the end of the video. You can drop the winner in the comments or you can email me at reesewaters.com. By the way, I'll also probably have a poll up in the community tab. All right, y'all ready? Today's nominee, boxer Ryan Garcia. Now, Ryan Garcia has now apologized after a series of slurs and tweets became public, including disparaging remarks about George Floyd, whose tragic death in 2020 galvanized global protests against police brutality. Now, Garcia has since been expelled from the WBC, the World Boxing Council, with WBC President Mauricio Suleiman making the announcement on Thursday, citing Garcia's troubling behavior on social media as the primary reason. Quote, in exercising my authority as president of the WBC, I'm expelling Ryan Garcia from any involvement with our organization. We unequivocally reject any form of discrimination. I am deeply concerned for his well-being. Now, let's hit that last point. It's for that reason that I was actually somewhat conflicted about whether or not to nominate this for Racist of the Week, because he has exhibited a series of behavior that has been concerning at best. And I'm not sure of the actual conviction of his racist beliefs for that simple reason. Yet at the same token, how could I just ignore somebody saying, well, you know what? Some things are just beyond the pale. Here's a sampling.
I'm anti-black.
Yeah, let's join the Ku Klux Klan. Let's fuck the.
Yeah, I'm KKK. I hate.
I'm the leader of KKK, and I summon you to be the knight in shining
Nah,
armor.
I'm KKK. No, I'm KKK.
I've got the AK-47 ready. Let's get the next George Floyd.
Hey, let's go bring George Floyd back to life and kill that again.
I'm gonna put my knee on his neck.
We need a scientist.
In addition to that clip, there was a whole gang of ends and I hate ends and I want to join the KKK, F the Muslims, accusations of crimes against children. You guys know the rabbit hole he went down. Now, a few things that I did want to note here. Hey, Trump, this you?
Uh-oh. Let's see what you got, fast hands.
Donald Trump 2024.
Cause I'm pretty sure that this is you. Now you didn't say what he said, but I want to know, why does this rhetoric always find itself so close to Mar-a-Lago, right? It's always adjacent. It's always just a hop, skip, and a jump. I mean, every Trump voter isn't an anti-black racist, but all anti-black racists are Trump voters. Now why is that for somebody that's, according to you, been the best thing for black people since Abraham Lincoln? And some people think more so. Isn't that what you say? Another thing that I want to note is this part right here.
There's no such thing as Israel. There's no such thing as Palestine. If God chose the Israel people to be the promised people, that's it. We don't have no choice, you fucking weirdos. There's no such thing as Palestine. You dumb motherfuckers. If you go against Israel, you go against God's promise. Go anti-nigga these niggers, bro. I hate them. Go anti. Go. Hey, are you black?
Does that sound familiar to anybody? Does it sound familiar? I think I've heard that before.
We bless Israel. We bless Israel. Those who bless Israel shall be blessed.
In that degree program, I didn't research exactly what you teach, but are you familiar with Genesis 12:3?
Probably not as well as you are, Congressman.
Well, it's pretty clear. It was a covenant that God made with Abraham. And that covenant was real clear. If you bless Israel, I will bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you. And then in the New Testament, it was confirmed that all nations would be blessed through you.
That is rhetoric coming out of the mouth of a boxer in a drunken rant, exhibiting behavior so troubling he's been expelled from the WBC. Yet it's also word for word the same thing that's been said on Capitol Hill by people that we pay to lead us. Now they took Ryan presumably somewhere to sleep it off after this, but Republicans raise money off of it. I think some of them need to sleep it off. I really do. I think some of them need to sleep it off. Bober, you've been doing too much sleeping. Representatives for Garcia and Golden Boy Promotions, his management company, didn't respond immediately to requests for comment regarding the WBC's decision. Garcia did post an apology on Twitter saying, "I was trolling. I want all of the killing to stop. I love everyone. Sorry if I offended you." In a statement released after the WBC's penalty, Garcia's family addressed his behavior as well, saying that they do not align with his or his family's true character or beliefs. According to his father, our family unequivocally does not support any statements Ryan has made regarding race or religion. These do not reflect who Ryan truly is and how he was raised. Those who know Ryan can attest to this fact. Ryan has been open about his ongoing struggle with mental health over the years, and as a family, we're committed to ensuring and encouraging that he receives the necessary help to navigate this very challenging time and address both his immediate and long-term well-being. Now, I appreciate his family actually taking ownership that what he said was as troubling and problematic as it's been received. At the same token, I'm a little bit conflicted about how accountable to hold somebody who is presumably suffering from mental health issues for this kind of rhetoric. Because at the one hand, we have a pretty long rope for people who we believe are not operating at the height of their powers. At the same token, why does it always get to racism? Like, why does it always get to racism? And not like one racist thing. He hit you with the ends. He hit you with, I want to join the KKK. And he hit you with digging up George Floyd. Like, that is a pretty, and then he also hit us with the Muslim rhetoric and the Israel rhetoric. Sounds like a downright MAGA platform that'll get you elected in 14, 15 states. That's pretty specific. Now, in addition to his expulsion from the WBC, Garcia is currently serving a 1-year suspension handed down by the New York State Athletic Commission. This penalty was imposed after Garcia tested positive for a banned substance before his April bout against Devin Haney. Initially, Garcia had triumphed convincingly over Haney, securing a majority decision victory with 3 knockdowns. However, this victory was later overturned to a no contest, which I guess gets Devin Haney off the hook for not eliminating Ryan Garcia from our public consciousness. Like, when I first saw this, I was extremely mad, because I was like, man, Devin, if you would have handled your business, we wouldn't have had to worry about this dude. This wouldn't have even been news. But I guess if the man was on that stuff, then I can't really say that. I've lost fights to people that won nothing but hot dogs and Cisco. So who knows how the good stuff actually works. In fact, Devin Haney's father and trainer Bill Haney weighed in on the whole thing.
I'm definitely not happy to see the kid crashing out, you know. I always try to be as optimistic as I can as just a human being, and I hope that, everyone could be with me in my most trying times, as well as him going through his or anyone in my family. These are the times that having a dad who's been there on that roller coaster with you, that ups and downs, that their voice is loud and vocal at the top, as well as when you've hit rock bottom. So that team, you know what I mean? I wish them well, but there's no place for that kind of talk, you know what I mean? And particularly and directed, in the way that it's being directed, it's just no place for it. I think that he should get help, you know what I mean? And that's it. I don't believe in kicking a man while they're down. But he definitely should get help, and the people around him should step up and be held accountable and speak loud and be just as, happy that they can be there for Ryan during these kind of times. This is a time that you see what kind of team you got.
Concerns over Garcia's mental state had been mounting in the lead up to his fight with Haney, exacerbated by his erratic behavior online. Suleiman acknowledged that despite outreach efforts from the WBC offering support for mental health and substance abuse, Garcia had declined multiple offers of assistance. Now, a couple things. One, I just raised the question of how responsible to hold people when we feel like they're not operating at the height of their powers, or when they're refusing assistance. That would ratchet that up just a little bit. I would also ask this question: how do the other sanctioning bodies look at this point? Like, the WBC has seen, if nobody did anything, then maybe boxing could wash its hands of delving into these matters. But once the WBC decides to suspend him, how the rest of y'all looking? I know that there is a very strong black contingent in all of those sanctioning bodies. And why don't you just take a poll on how they feel about what he had to say about George Floyd? And while we're on the topic, why is it that George Floyd is such a lightning rod for people who want to offend black people? Like, why is that? Like, do you think that we worship George Floyd?
We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump, worshiping as a convicted felon. He is a convicted felon. Well, yeah, so is George Floyd. And everybody, and you all too, the media worship George Floyd. Democrats worship George Floyd. There were riots burning down the fucking country over George Floyd, and Raskin is in there saying we worship him.
Oh, wait, you do think that we worship George Floyd? That's funny, because for you to think that, you would have to not be listening to us at all, which is fascinating, because you feel like you have so much to say to refute the things that we put out there, but you clearly are not even listening. So that really takes away any legitimacy and credence to any rebuttal that you may have.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Today's nominee, the Denver City Council. Two black elementary school children who spoke at a Denver City Council meeting faced racial abuse from a Zoom participant who called them N's and told them to go back to effing Africa. These two students were from Monarch Montessori School, and they attended the meeting to advocate for several of their school plans. One was in the 4th grade and the other was in the 5th grade. They're part of their school's student leadership committee, and they presented a proposal to build a yurt for music classes and additional classroom space. So think for a moment about a young girl in 4th grade and a young girl in 5th grade who rose to a level of leadership in their school, who get the opportunity to speak to the city council to advocate for additional resources for their programs. Nothing but the most innocent of intentions. And less than a minute into their speech, a female sounding voice interrupted via Zoom with a racist tirade lasting about 30 seconds. The council staff quickly worked to remove the caller, but the tirade included statements like, "You effing little N's," "You should remove the N's," and "It's the Jews that brought them here." Now, one of the girls was so upset she broke into tears and had to be escorted from the podium by her teacher, while the other chose to restart her speech. What do you tell these girls? What exactly is it that you tell these girls in a situation like this? How do you make sense of something like this? As a father of a young daughter, thinking of having to educate her to some of the ways of the world, what is the lesson that you teach her in this instance? And also, it's not lost on me that this is who we are dealing with out here. People that don't have the human decency to protect small children from their ignorance. The same small children that they would have us believe are so delicate that they can't hear about Black history without feeling bad about themselves, right? The same small children who we can't tell the truth about the Civil War, we can't tell the truth about Jim Crow or the Civil Rights Movement, we can't tell them the whole truth because the white kids would feel bad about themselves, but then turn around and have no problem dropping "you little N's" on young Black girls. So apparently, the feelings of young Black girls and young Black children in general isn't something to be considered ever. Not when we're talking about what we can't study in history, not to give them a better understanding of their place in the world, and certainly not when they're here at a Denver City Council meeting just innocently advocating for resources for their school. Now, Council President Jamie Torres condemned the incident, stating the words were vile, as was the character of a person who would actively seek to say these words to two beautiful and courageous young girls. These youth gathered the bravery to bring their voices to their city council representatives to improve their school and community. We honor and praise these two young voices and condemn anyone who would attack them and any other member of our community. I would second that. Now, the disruption derailed the public comment section, preventing two more Monarch Montessori students from speaking about creating safe crossing areas around their school. However, the students were allowed to give their speeches privately to council members afterwards. Some council members stayed after the meeting to offer support and speak with the families. And I applaud those council members who stayed after to offer support and speak with the family. I don't know why it doesn't say all council members stayed after the meeting to offer support and speak with the families. I don't know why you decide to leave. You know what? I think I'm good. I think they got enough support. Besides, I thought maybe the Zoom caller made some good points. So, I don't want to contradict myself by leaving the meeting. I'm also thinking about the students that didn't get a chance to speak, because I'm sure this is something that they really look forward to, watching what happens to their schoolmates and knowing they won't get an opportunity because the public can't be trusted to hear from schoolgirls. That's where we are in 2024, that this has to happen in private because we can't trust the public not to drop ends on little black girls. Now, Giovanni Bro, the girl's teacher, expressed her distress over the incident, saying, as a black woman, bringing these young black students to the city council and getting them so excited was something she was doing for the first time. Seeing them so excited and having to face such behavior was excruciating. Everyone's response was jaws hitting the floor. And I really sympathize with the teacher's position, because while you thought that you were doing an amazing thing by giving them an opportunity to present themselves publicly, now all of a sudden that becomes the vehicle for them learning a very difficult lesson about the black experience. And despite the fact that it being 0% your fault, it would be lost on me if you didn't feel some form of culpability for putting them in this position. Now, Monarch Montessori Executive Director Laura Preddy announced that the school is organizing an event with the school board to celebrate the children's bravery. Quote, I was so proud of the girls for the work they did to prepare and go before the city council to speak. To have something like that happen worries me that it could scare a young person away from engaging in democratic systems and using their voice to advocate for things that they care about. City council administrative staff are investigating the incident, which they called a breach. Typically, public participants in city council meetings via Zoom are muted until they're called on to speak. The caller identified themselves as Charla Nash, but council administrators believe this name is fake because it matches a woman who was attacked by a chimp in 2009. They're working to determine how the disruption occurred and to implement better preventative measures. Now, let me say, I am no stranger to Zoom bombing, okay? I have been in some meetings where a Zoom bomber dropped in and they just say the most outrageous thing they can, which is really quite stupid. I mean, we have to actually feel some appreciation for how stupid and lazy Zoom bombers are, that they just announce themselves immediately. If they really want to be a little more insidious, they'd be a little bit more subtle in their Zoom bombing. So I do want to thank them for their ignorance and their complete lack of attention span. But all that I could wish on this person, they actually presented themselves by referencing Charla Nash, the woman who was attacked by a chimpanzee. So I can only hope about the ugliness that this person feels on the inside, that they would feel the need to drop this on young black schoolgirls. I could only hope for that, but then it becomes clear when you reference Charla Nash. Now, the fact that they had to endure these racist actions and words in our chamber brings us pain. That was Torres. The Denver City Council condemns any hate speech and wants those responsible to know it only serves to motivate us on the City Council, 2 of whom are African American, 6 of whom are Latina, and all of whom will continue to serve proudly as anti-racist council and community members. Now, to the Zoom bomber, is that the conclusion you were looking for? Is that the conclusion you were looking for? Because that's the only conclusion that you were going to get. Now, I had said earlier about the dissonance that it takes to try and protect young white children from having to understand the realities of America's history, but have no problem dropping this on young black girls. How about the fact that while we're having this national debate about DEI, while we're having this national debate about the real race experience in America, you give us all the evidence we need for why that's necessary? You give us all the evidence we need for why that's necessary. You will at the same time argue that our experience is not valid and the things that we are describing to you do not exist, but yet this is what young black schoolgirls have to go through, and you're going to give us the video and audio in 2024. That is what I call hustling backwards. Is this what you want? Because I can't imagine that the true architects of white supremacy in America would be pleased with this. This is not how you go about your business. Now, it's how a lot of people have been going about their business lately. It's the reason why I've had to record not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 of these bad boys within the last 7 calendar days. That is how bold racists have been getting in 2024, which on the one hand, I have to have some appreciation for, because you leave the evidence right here. You leave the evidence right here, all over the web, all over TV, all over Zoom for people to be able to reference for the work that we need to do in society. So I have to have a little gratitude for you there. But at the same time, it does give me pause for wondering just how bold they will get that they have no problem doing this in a public forum where they know it's recorded to young school children. What's the line? You tell me what the line is for these people, because they keep claiming that, we need to get back to human decency in America. We need to get back to decorum in America. Is this what you're talking about? This was it? Huh? Today's nominee, former mayor of New Bern, Alabama, Haywood Stokes III, his city council, the People's Bank of Greensboro, and the postmaster at the U.S. Post Office. Now, those are all the people named in a lawsuit filed by a black man who won the 2020 mayoral election in the town of New Bern, Alabama, but was prevented from assuming office. He has fortunately just recently reached a proposed settlement with New Bern. Now, you might be asking yourself, how would they just prevent the man from taking office? Like, he got charges? Was the man a felon? Because, we don't allow felons to do a whole lot of things in this country. But they could be president. No, that wasn't it. Patrick Braxton is set to officially become New Bern's mayor pending court approval, marking the first time in the town's 166-year history that a black person will hold that position. Now, it's located approximately an hour from Selma in western Alabama. New Bern has a population of 133 according to the last census, and it is 85% black. And you know what? A place that is 85% black, having their first black mayor, that should already be racist of the week. I have questions. I have questions for how something like that could happen. But you might be asking, well, why would it be racist of the week? Because this sounds like a celebratory moment. Well, it ain't. Here's where it gets crazy. Following his swearing in, Braxton alleged in a lawsuit that the previous white mayor, Haywood Stokes III, and yes, I had to check to make sure that man was white. I mean, Haywood Stokes III, that's the kind of white man that would get an invitation to the cookout just on general principle. Like, they wouldn't even look at the headshot. They Haywood Stokes III? Oh yeah, go ahead and send that registered mail. Braxton claims that Haywood Stokes III, white man, and the majority white city council denied him full access to the mayoral office. Braxton, along with 4 residents he tried to appoint to a new city council, along with support from the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, filed a legal challenge to uphold the election results. Now, this is MAGA gone wild. Now you gotta file lawsuits to uphold election results. This is what they do. So it's not about who gets the most votes or who actually won the election. I guess it's just about who holds the keys. We'll hold that thought. Braxton claims that he was literally locked out of the town hall, town mail, and financial accounts used to govern the city's budget. They are treating City Hall like a landlord situation. You just gonna lock the man out like, hey, we didn't get them votes, but we got that locksmith over, so it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. I'm just gonna stay right here because I got squatters' rights now. Yeah, I got squatters' rights, so technically that makes me the mayor. They can't make me leave. And you locked him out of the accounts, which you just took all the laptops. You just raided the place like a smash and grab on Rodeo. I'm baffled. I'm baffled that these are the lengths that people will go to preserve power these days. Now, by the way, that is exactly what Trump should have done. He definitely should have changed the White House locks. I shouldn't have said that out loud. I'll probably give him some ideas. The lawsuit also alleged that to prevent Braxton from appointing a majority black town council, the defendants held a secret meeting and orchestrated a special election where only incumbents were eligible, effectively preventing any new appointments. So if you're scoring at home, they held a double secret meeting amongst themselves and held an election amongst themselves where only they were eligible, despite the fact that you literally have residents that had an actual election. Like, just taking all the agency away from the people. Who they think they are, the Supreme Court? Now, the settlement affirms Braxton as the rightful mayor of New Bern, with all corresponding powers and duties under Alabama state law, as it should. By law, Braxton was the sole qualified candidate, In 2020, then a volunteer firefighter, Braxton was the only one to actually submit paperwork to run for mayor. Stokes had never filed the paperwork in the past and was always allowed to just assume the position. This is also the same scenario for the council. Let me read that last part again. Stokes, the former mayor, had never filed paperwork in the past to run for mayor. He was always allowed to just assume the position of mayor. And that is exactly the same scenario for the council. Now, I know exactly how much you love to tell people to assume the position, but I've never seen it play out like this. That is wild. So what we have here is a cabal of white men that have assumed power over this majority black town, preventing them from having any sort of say-so in their well-being. I mean, even driving Miss Daisy wasn't this offensive. Notably, the settlement actually doesn't require the defendants to admit any wrongdoing, and that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. If we gonna force Rachel Dolezal to come out here and admit that she perpetrated a fraud and that she has a feet OnlyFans account, how do you get to take all of the voting and electoral power away from almost 200 black people and not have to admit to it in public? Make that make sense. If I have to acknowledge where I was when I slide in the house at 2:15 and I accidentally step on the dog's food bowl and wake up my wife, then you should have to publicly acknowledge taking the electoral power away from 200 black people. Like, that's just, I mean, really, like, come on, what are we doing here? By the way, Leah Wong, an attorney with the Legal Defense Fund representing Braxton, characterized the settlement as a positive step, enabling the town to move forward. She noted that despite the challenges, most black residents continue to recognize Braxton as their mayor throughout the ordeal. Now this makes perfect sense why they wanted to settle, because wasn't nobody respecting him as mayor. That's what it is. There wasn't nobody respecting him as mayor. They just put a little badge and a little sticker on his forehead and told him he was Superman, like you do that weird kid in the 4th grade. I didn't know you could even have multiple people walking around as mayors. If I was Braxton, I would just follow him around and tell people to do the opposite and just troll him until he walks off the job. Now, under the terms of the settlement, Braxton must submit names of residents to the Alabama governor for potential appointment to the town council within 14 days of the settlement's effective date. If the governor doesn't appoint council members, Braxton will oversee a special election by December 31st, 2024, alongside the regularly scheduled elections in 2025. Additionally, the town agrees to cover the plaintiff's attorney fees using town funds and will undergo an independent audit of its finances, agreed upon jointly by Braxton and Stokes. Now, here's where they got me messed up. So you want Braxton to assume mayoral duties of the town that now has to pay for the nonsense fraud that you've been perpetrating for years? Word? So basically that's gonna come out my pocket. That's what you're telling me? Why they act like we can't read? No, Haywood Stokes III needs to pay for that. And if he don't have the money on him, tell him to sell some of his hats and some of his cigars, because I know he got them, because his name is Haywood Stokes III. Now, the more I read, the more angry I became at it. Like, get this. A lifelong New Bern resident and volunteer firefighter, Braxton challenged the town's leadership to better serve its majority black community. The lawsuit highlighted that New Bern had not held a mayoral election. You remember I said how Stokes just assumed power? New Bern had not held a mayoral election since at least 1965. 1965. Despite changes in demographics and voting rights laws, they haven't had an election since the Voting Rights Act. Yes, as soon as the Voting Rights Act came out, they were like, oh, not my darkies, mine not voting. I tell you that. We gonna find a way around that civil rights. I tell you that. That's exactly what we gonna do. That is wild. Now, while the defendants denied any conspiracy or racial discrimination in court filings, the resolution of the case marks a significant milestone in New Bern's civic history, acknowledging and rectifying long-standing racial disparities in local governance. In fact, Braxton at 57 says that when he won his election during the height of the pandemic, a white woman told him that the whites in the then 166-year-old city were, quote, not ready for a black mayor. She told him in 2020 that they weren't ready for a black mayor. They had a black president. They had a black president and they not ready for a black. If you're not ready for a black mayor in 2020, you're never going to be ready for a black mayor. That is exactly who you are. Emmett Riley III, a professor at the University of the South, put it perfectly, saying, quote, it is a clear case of white people attempting to seize and maintain political power in the face of someone who went through the appropriate steps to qualify and run for office and by default wins because no one else is qualified. And you know what? I would have to agree. I can't even pick what was the most wild part of this story. The fact that they tried to win an election by having the locks changed, the fact that they hadn't had an election since 1965, since the voting rights, these people hadn't even exercised their new civil rights. Are there other civil rights that they haven't exercised yet? This is like a voting episode of Juneteenth. Do we need to now acknowledge New Bern and the moment that they finally realize that they have the ability to vote? And what other civil rights have they not been exercising? I need to know exactly how free New Bern is. That is how wild this story is. But I do want to congratulations to you, Haywood Stokes III, and your invitation to the cookout is long gone. Today's nominee, this Nashville, Tennessee DoorDash driver. Now, we've heard of driving while black, walking while black, jogging while black, biking while black. So it's no wonder sometimes it's just easier not to leave the house while black. But now even DoorDash is a problem. Christina Derrica uploaded the following video from her Ring camera from a recent delivery.
Here's your food, nigger.
Now, why did it sound like he was talking to a pet or something? Like it just came right out like that was just the normal thing for him to say. An unidentified man approaches the door of her Nashville home and says loudly enough for the audio to be clearly captured by the Ring camera, "Here's your food in." He later repeats the slur as he's walking away. Now I have a number of questions. The first being, how did you sandwich taking a photo confirming your delivery with two ends?
Here's your food.
I don't understand how you manage to be professional in the midst of being completely unprofessional. Like, you are capturing footage that you made the delivery while ignoring there could be footage of you making the delivery. Like, that is the most baffling. Like, you clearly have shown an awareness of the power of photo and video evidence while ignoring that it could possibly be a thing while you casually drop in.
Turn this on. Turn it on!
Also wondering why you clearly hold her responsible for whatever ails you. What exactly is the problem, Mr. DoorDash? And also, did you just happen to look at the photo and notice that it was an in? Like, did you know it was an end the whole way that you were driving and you just built up and you just couldn't take it anymore? Because it didn't sound like it. It sounded like you had more than enough time to know that you were delivering it to an end, and you just had to make sure that you knew that she knew that you knew that she was an end.
Why?
She also, by the way, after all of this, because apparently she had as many questions as I had, she called out the company in an additional post saying to fire him immediately. Well, in a letter Derica also posted to her TikTok, DoorDash confirmed that the driver had been fired and apologized for the incident. So I guess that's Uber Eats' problem now. Yeah, that's gonna be on Uber Eats. It's gonna be a rise and slurs over on Uber Eats, and we know who is to blame. They continued, DoorDash did, saying, please know that the type of behavior you described has no place on the DoorDash platform or anywhere else and is a violation of our safety policies. I want to assure you that we have investigated this incident and taken appropriate action by removing this dasher from the platform. That is right. That dasher apparently will have a very bright future on Airbnb, where that kind of thing is tolerated. Good on DoorDash, by the way, but we do know that he isn't the only one out there, right? He couldn't possibly be the only one because it was way too casual. In fact, just from researching this story, I found this.
Where's your shit? Where's your shit? Come get it. Nobody else got a name, S.H. S.H.B. Fuck you.
Whereas the first gentleman was the casual, detached racist, this is the other end of the spectrum. This is the emotional racist, somebody who clearly either holds this end or maybe all ends responsible for her lot in life, which is as sensible as her just laying down in somebody else's stairwell was, I suppose. So maybe this is in the era before contactless delivery where you had to do the hand-to-hand. In which case, were you just going to be on the ground when she came outside? Was that it? I mean, it's a weird way to present yourself to somebody who you consider yourself better than, to just be on the ground in the stairwell. I mean, were you waiting for her to hear you saying in? Were you waiting for hands and feet? It kind of sounds like you were waiting on a confrontation by virtue of the fact that you were just freely saying it while she could have presented herself at any moment in time, but you were clearly unprepared for hands and feet by virtue of being on the ground in the stairwell. And why am I trying to make sense of this woman's behavior? Actually mad that she didn't want to come out. Like, what were you going to do? Just be there lurking in the stairwell? After years of discrimination, we do have cameras, as the first gentleman found out, and as you also found out, as she was also promptly fired and probably replaced by the first guy. Actually, now that I mention it, it's kind of like a circle of life, like circle of races kind of thing. You can only discriminate for so long before we decide to use photo and video evidence to our advantage. Now, the takeaway for us is even food delivery is treacherous for black people in 2024. Now, fortunately, these two were too dumb to stay undercover, but it is a very good reminder that we have to be vigilant. And it's one of those extra things in our backpack of luggage and baggage that we have to carry around with us all the time, is if we are in an establishment and they're serving food or drink and the attitude is a little bit off, probably trust your instincts on that one. Now, there is some good news in all this, however, because I mentioned in the beginning, walking while black in the open. Well, fortunately, we had a judge who was acquainted with the notion, and he's not even black, the kind of ally that we need. This is Judge of the Harris County, Texas Criminal Court at Law number 5, David Fleischer.
Zion Abiola. Mr. Abiola, you're charged with 2 cases. You're charged with evading arrest. You're also charged with unlawful carrying of a weapon. On both of those cases, you're facing up to a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you, sir.
Judge, on May 30th, 2024, officers observed 2 black males walking out of Bedford Place Homeowner Association Park, which is closed after sunset. Officers made contact with the defendant and another male who advised they did not know the park was closed. Defendant kept reaching near his waistband and pocket. Officers attempted to conduct a Terry frisk on the defendant, resulting in the defendant running. Foot pursuit lasted approximately 25 to 30 yards. While running, a black handgun fell from the defendant's waist area. Defendant stated the gun belonged to his mother. Officers recovered a Glock 23, loaded with 1 bullet in the chamber and 7 in the magazine. 15 additional bullets were found inside defendant's book bag, and an extra magazine containing 18 bullets, a total of 41 bullets. Defendant's father arrived on scene and stated the defendant's mother is the one who purchased the weapon for the defendant. Defendant is 19 years of age. He has 2023 unlawful carrying of a weapon non-suit as a juvenile, no out-of-county criminal record.
Here's the rub. What's he doing? Walking while black? What's he doing? What's he doing wrong? Was he under arrest? I mean, all I see is that they go up to him and they just start searching, right?
I believe.
Walking while black. Mr. Abiola, I'd be very careful. You know, where you go, what you do may not end up well for you. I'm going to find no probable cause on this case now.
Thank you,
Mr. Abiola, be careful. Just take a seat for me in the back, please. Don't leave. I found no probable cause. Guys, keep it down, please. I found no probable cause. Your cases have been dismissed. The only thing I'm going to counsel you is to be careful. Don't go to parks after hours. Otherwise, they're just going to harass you. You understand? Okay. Good luck, man. You're free to go.
I absolutely love that video. I absolutely love that video because way too often this kind of conduct just gets rubber stamped by judges who basically don't want to ruffle any feathers and basically want to curry favor with a group that they're going to have to work with every day. And as a result, not doing their job, like actually not doing the job that they were elected to do. So I want to thank David Fleischer for actually deciding to do the thing that he was elected to do and represent the people of Harris County, Texas. That was dope, and we need many more like him. So let me get this straight. We can't box. We can't be a young black girl. We definitely can't vote or be mayor, exercise self-determination. Apparently the civil rights gains of the civil rights struggle was not for black people. I mean, that was wild. But what's that? Oh, my DoorDash is ready. Oh, we can't even DoorDash. We can't even DoorDash. Can't go to the grocery store. I mean, come on. Sincere thanks to everybody who's reached out to me and submitted suggestions for videos. Keep them coming. I take submissions for ideas for a video, suggestions for Racist of the Week. If you have something that just troubles you, or you just want to send me a note, because I love getting those notes, go ahead and shoot me an email at reese@reesewaters.com. I also have a newsletter that I send out periodically, so you'll be receiving that as well. You can also sign up on my website, reesewaters.com. Today's nominee, United Airlines. Now, I just want to flash back to a prior episode of Racist of the Week where American Airlines was featured in this exact space.
I want everyone to exit the top of the gentleman.
Yo, I paid for the flight just like everybody else. So we don't have a right to be on this flight?
So this is discrimination.
Yo, this is insane.
I agree. Yo, just because of the color of my skin. Correct. Okay. Okay. I do not disagree with you.
Now, the link to that video is in the description, and apparently not wanting American to suffer alone, United is now in on the action as former Denver Bronco and two-time Super Bowl champion Terrell Davis claimed he was wrongfully accused of hitting a flight attendant on Saturday while asking for a cup of ice.
Going down the aisle with the cart, asked my son if you for
How old
drinks.
is your son?
He's 13.
13, okay.
13. And so my son simply asked him after he had served me, he said, may I please have a cup of ice? And the flight attendant didn't hear him, so he pushed the cart past me because I'm in the aisle. And I reached over lightly, I put my hand up first, and I was trying to get his attention, and he didn't see it, so I politely tapped him on his shoulder. And when I did that, he swung his arm around, and he said, don't hit me. And,
Were you surprised that was his reaction?
Oh, absolutely. My hands out. I was like, what are you talking about?
What's your definition, Terrell, of a light tap? You know?
That's I'm tapping my wife the same way I tapped him, just to get his attention.
Terrell Davis's children were excited about their California vacation when their father was unexpectedly handcuffed and removed from a United Airlines flight.
You know, he rushed to the front of the plane, he left the cart there, but I didn't think anything of it. Like, okay, whatever. He had his little moment there, but...
Did other passengers say anything?
Yeah, one passenger in front of me turned around and said that you didn't hit him. He said, I saw it, you didn't hit him. I was like, yeah, of course I didn't hit him. And so I thought nothing of it. That was it.
So when did you all realize there was a problem?
When we landed in Orange County, and they told everybody on the plane to remain in their seats because they didn't give us they didn't say why.
They said everybody.
But I thought it was because there was a medical emergency. I had been on planes before. I've seen that before. They say stay on a plane, let paramedics come on, and then you get off.
You didn't think it had anything to do with you.
I am reading a magazine at that point. Reading the magazine, my kids are over there, my wife's over there, and all of a sudden you can kind of hear, you can hear all the gear and the walkie-talkies and a lot of commotion. And I peeked into the aisle, and I see all the agents. I see FBI on the jacket. I see the green. I think it was the Orange County Sheriff Department.
Yeah.
And they were walking back toward the plane, and as they get closer to my seat, they come straight to me. And the agent walks up to me, and he leans over, whispers, don't fight it, and put the cuffs on me.
Davis, by the way, is still waiting for a direct apology from United. The incident occurred Saturday at the end of a flight from Denver to Orange County, California. Davis summarized everything on Instagram. Now, at this point, I kind of want to put a pin on things because anybody could have a bad day. Anybody can react angrily at work without sufficient provocation. But in this specific instance, elevating it to violence, an accusation of somebody striking you, doing it on a plane and doing it to a black man, despite the fact that he is with his family, is an outrageous abuse of power. And not to mention one that could have substantial ramifications, especially if the person involved was not rich and or a two-time Super Bowl champion.
I was not aware of any incident.
Yeah. So from your point of view, the agents come on and arrest your husband.
Right, and I'm curious, just like the rest of the flight, like, oh, what's happening? And I see them go straight to Terrell and put him in handcuffs. And I jumped up and I said, wait a minute. And I said, what are you doing? Like, what? And I kept asking Terrell, I said, is this a joke? Like, are you joking? I thought, like, what else could it be, right?
Yes.
This is some cruel practical prank he's pulling on me.
No.
And you just have all these emotions going through panic.
And your children, you have 3 children, ages what, and what?
Our boys are 13 and 11, and they were seated next to Terrell, and our daughter is 9.
After Davis was taken off the plane, we were just left to fend for ourselves on a flight with everyone staring at us. Now, here is a point where I want to go back to something that was said earlier, where he talked about the effect on his family. You have the mental and emotional effect on his family, which could be longer lasting and is much more significant. You have the actual direct effect on his family, the fact that they removed him from the flight without any understanding of how that was going to affect their situation or where exactly they were supposed to go or what exactly they were supposed to do. I would also like to point out the fact that this is something that apparently happened before the flight, which means that this flight attendant had ample time in order to calm himself down and correct his story of the sequence of events. I don't want to hear anything about this is something that got out of control. I don't want to hear anything about this was something that was reactionary. Apparently, there was ample time for this to have been corrected. Later, during questioning, it was rightfully determined by the agents that this flight attendant was inaccurate in his accusations, and the agents profusely apologized, Davis wrote. United Airlines has removed the flight attendant from duty while we closely review this matter.
Well, they apologized. And they said that, listen, if I needed anything, they were there to help. But they realized that what the guy had said. And the biggest problem for me was that the intent of the flight attendant. When you went up there and made that call, your intent was to destroy me, right? And I didn't do anything to him. We never had any conversation.
And you all were trying to go to Disneyland.
We were going on vacation.
I mean, there are so many layers to this story.
Yeah. The company said in an email on Monday evening. Now, it's clearly not the kind of travel experience we strive to provide, and we have reached out to Mr. Davis's team to apologize, said the email. But Davis said they've not reached out to me to apologize. They've reached out to my attorney, but I haven't heard from them directly. And so that, to me, is a problem. And I would agree, if that's something that I happen to go through, I don't want to hear about you reaching out to my attorney. I need you to holler at me. A similar refrain as I had in Wisconsin with Mr. Matt Eady and him reaching out to the attorney of the superintendent that he handled as opposed to the man himself in order to claim that it wasn't racism. I've never known to need an attorney in order to defend you from accusations from racism.
Oh.
They don't want him to be able to shake her down because he doesn't deserve it from her and all the she went through in this district. I'm not aware of allegations where Dr. Gray doing anything to your daughter specifically. No, it wasn't him specifically.
The traumatizing experience of my two sons, my daughter, and my wife watching me be placed in handcuffs without due process or any explanation cannot be undone, he wrote on Instagram. The FBI's Los Angeles field office acknowledged on Monday that agents and law enforcement partners responded to a report of an incident with a flight that landed Saturday at Orange County's John Wayne Airport. A person who was detained for questioning was cooperative with law enforcement and was released to continue his travels. That's what the FBI office said. And kudos to Terrell Davis for being cooperative with law enforcement because, Lord knows, it speaks to the kind of quick math that we have to do despite your anger and righteous indignation in a situation, knowing that if you were to react the way that you feel you're justified in reacting, things will actually get far worse before they get better. The FBI does not provide details of incidents or names of people who might have been interviewed unless charges are filed publicly. That was according to the FBI spokesperson. What happened on the flight is appalling and disturbing to say the least. That was from Parker Steiner, managing partner of the Chicago-based law firm representing Davis, who wrote in an email, "We plan on fully investigating the events that took place and are actively contacting United Airlines in this matter." By the way, those of you unacquainted with TD, he's one of only 8 running backs to have rushed for more than 2,000 yards in an NFL season. Davis played 7 years in the NFL, all with the Broncos from 95 to 2001, and helped the Broncos win 2 of them things, 2 Super Bowls in January of 98 and 99, and he was named MVP of that first title game, rushing for 157 yards and scoring 3 touchdowns in the Broncos' 31-24 win over the Green Bay Packers. The 3-time Pro Bowler was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2017. That said, you shouldn't have to be a 3-time Pro Bowler enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in order to not be treated like this in front of your family based on the accusations of one person who had ample time in order to calm himself down. I applaud him and his family for their grace under severe amount of pressure in this situation. And I would also imagine a severe amount of shame, given the fact that he is somebody who people immediately recognize, and everybody doesn't understand the full extent of the story. They just see a black man being dragged off a plane. Oh, wait, that's Terrell Davis. Now, I would first like to take a moment to pay respect to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, a 15-term representative from Houston, an advocate for social and economic justice, whose record included being the chief sponsor of the resolution making Juneteenth a federal holiday. Well, Jackson Lee passed away on Friday at the age of 74. Jackson Lee's family released a statement from her office, quote, "A fierce champion of the people, she was affectionately and simply known as Congresswoman by her constituents in recognition of her near ubiquitous presence and service to their daily lives for more than 30 years. President Joe Biden called her a great American whom he worked with for nearly 30 years. Now, for most people, well, all people, this was a moment for respect and reflection, but we have beasts among us. Our first nominee, conservative talking thing, Laura Loomer. In the wake of Sheila Jackson Lee's death, she saw fit to post this. Even on her deathbed, this ghetto bee couldn't keep President Trump's name out of her disgusting mouth. I'd say rest in peace, but we all know lying Democrats who have destroyed our country are going to hell. Sheila Jackson Lee will be remembered as a destructive force in America and one of the most low IQ members of Congress in the history of our nation. Today, she died. Instead of spending her final moments with her family, she was talking S about Trump on X and spewing more lies. She won't be missed, but I'm sure she'll still be voting Democrat this November. Now, I'll at least give her this much. If anybody knows the roll call of hell, it would be a real life demon. Now, I do find it to be fascinating, the fact that she called her disgusting mouth, she called her low IQ, and of course she led with ghetto B. I wonder, what is it about a 15-term congresswoman that somebody she would cross the street if they cross paths on Capitol Hill or literally anywhere in America would call her a ghetto bee? What is it about Sheila Jackson Lee that made you say she had a disgusting mouth? You said she had a disgusting mouth. So I guess this is what a mouth is supposed to look like, but this is a disgusting mouth. I wonder what it could be about Sheila Jackson Lee that made you assume that a 15-term congresswoman was low IQ. See, this is what happened. It must have been spell check. It must have been spell check because she went with ghetto, which she really meant DEI. That's what she meant. We using DEI now for black.
I think it's just a failure from top to bottom. I think she was a DEI hire, and I think that that's what we're seeing.
We're not using ghetto no more because you got a nominee who's in between marriages and children who got cases. You have congresswomen who's in between children and marriages and got cases. You had Kid Rock headline the RNC. Oh no, we don't mean ghetto. We don't mean ghetto. We mean black. And to you, Laura Loomer, and you would know this if you were actually interacting with real life people instead of the ghouls and goblins that you're generally surrounded with, you would know that they're using DEI now. I'm just telling you that to help you out. They're using DEI for black now. It's not ghetto. No, ghetto is that's very 90s, early 2000s way to insult a black person. We're not doing that. Now, when this whole thing came to light, she wanted to make sure that people understood that she, in fact, was not celebrating Sheila Jackson Lee's passing. So she posted this gem. I never celebrated the death of Sheila Jackson. I simply spoke the truth and said she was a major Trump hater and a destructive politician who was full of hatred and rage towards Donald Trump till the day she died. I stand by what I said. Everything I said is true. I will always defend President Trump from attacks by low-life Democrats who are only in office because of their skin color. There you are. There you go. There's your DEI. Being dead doesn't change the fact that Sheila Jackson Lee was a piece of S and a terrible congresswoman who spent years inciting violence against Trump. This is not the same as celebrating her death. The only thing I'm celebrating is the fact that Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt, praise God, that was inspired by the Democrats, and it is looking like an inside job. I meant what I said about Sheila being a ghetto B. Let's not give her sympathy just because she's black and dead. She was a terrible person and facts matter. I'm here to make sure her hatred is never forgotten. Hashtag Trump Vance 2024. Now, I'll be honest, I was really conflicted about this one. I was very conflicted about this one. Last time I was this conflicted was Valentina Gomez, and it was for the exact same reason. So many of you guys sent this in to me, but it is clear that attention is the very goal. So even by dragging her, I am giving her the thing that she so desperately wants. And why not? This is somebody that I would roll my windows up if she was standing in the median as I merged into traffic. This isn't even her first Twitter dump, or as I call it, Elon Musk. She also posted, I'm happy to see Joe Biden suffering. It makes me happy to know he's going to have a terrible time in his final days in office. I'm happy his wife gets to watch him rot away like the trash pile he is and always has been. Today is very satisfying for me. Don't ever forget what Joe Biden and his enablers took away from all of us. Biden doesn't deserve any sympathy. He's a twisted, sick old man, and that's how he'll be remembered when he's gone. And if you recall, back when Hunter Biden was convicted, she found a way to make it about herself attacking Joe Biden's dead ex-wife. So you can understand why I thought it was conflicted. The kind of person who thinks up the worst possible thing she could possibly say so that somebody pays some attention to her for once in her life is not the kind of person that I want to play into their game. But I thought it was important to mention Laura Loomer for two specific reasons. Number one, let's go to that Jackson Lee post again. Yeah, scroll down to the bottom. That's right, hashtag Trump Vance. Make sure you blast this far and wide because we aren't the ones extending her 15 fangs of fame. It is the right wing. Go ahead, put her on the podcast, bring her to the conventions, make her the literal face of MAGA. Oh, I see you're already on your way. Fantastic. I want to see this face everywhere I see a Trump flag, sticker, or a t-shirt. Didn't y'all say that you were trying to court black men? You know how many black men this going to attract? I mean, really, you know how many black men this is going to attract. Not to mention closing the border. This is definitely going to solve your border crisis right here. We don't need no bipartisan border deal. This face, just throw that all across the non-existent wall. They're going to stay right where they're at. And the second reason why I wanted to mention Laura Loomer is this. You see what all that hate does to you? You see how it affects your skin? That hate, it just gets out. It's like underneath your pores and it's just poking, trying to get out. And then when you don't release the hate, when you don't find some peace within yourself, it just presses down at the jaw. It elongates the face, creates pock marks around the chin, drives the eyes from one another like X's. Do you see what the hate does to you? It is so bad. And I have so much compassion for her. I really do, because I can understand if you go to a church or something like that, then that's a place that you can find some peace and release hate. They won't let her in a church looking like that. They won't let her in a church looking like horrorcore cosplay. They won't let her in a church. So she has difficulty releasing that hate. X and Twitter is where she releases that hate. Now I get it. Now I totally understand. Now what kind of racist would Laura Loomer be if she didn't also attack Kamala Harris? It's time for Republicans to start talking about Kamala Harris's sexual history and the reason why she doesn't have any children of her own. I'm willing to bet she's had so many abortions that she's damaged her uterus. A woman who has no biological children of her own should not be allowed to make decisions in the White House for your children. Now, I've already dragged Laura Loomer to the alien meet. She is also unmarried. She also has no children. And this is the first time anybody has ever inquired about that. I'm not going to drag her about that because it's one of the few positive things that we have to look forward to in this story. It is time to move on to our next nominee, Kellyanne Conway. Who had the good sense to go on Fox News airwaves with this take.
She had disastrous staff turnover as vice president. I check it on the daily. Her public schedule, gentlemen, rarely has anything on it, or one or two things on it. She does not speak well. She does not work hard.
All right, so
she doesn't inspire
Kellyanne,
anyone.
let me ask you.
And she should not be the standard bearer for the party. Yes, sir.
She doesn't speak well and she doesn't work hard. Anything else you want to go with? She doesn't speak well. She don't work hard. She lazy. Her breath smell like watermelon. She be eating Popeye's biscuits with no drink. Is there anything else that you want to get off your chest? Is there anything else? She never shows up on time. There you go. She never shows up on time, and she will only get stuff on sale. I bet she has a drawer full of nothing but shopping bags. I bet she hoards those plastic shopping bags, and she got a whole drawer. She keep them in her dishwasher. Did you know she keeps shopping bags in her dishwasher? She realized, Kamala Harris, she will take a clean cup out of the cupboard and just pour water in it for no reason before she put her drink in it. There it is. She had the nerve to give us the laziest stereotypes imaginable while wearing blackface. I don't understand. Pick a struggle, Kellyanne Conway. At least show some appreciation for the culture if you're going to go with the complexion. When you chose the complexion, that should have came with a little bit of respect for the culture. You can't disrespect black people while wearing blackface. Now, while we're talking about people's work ethic, by the way, is this your man's? Because it looked like it's your man's. It looked like it's your man's. By the way, is this you? That's all that hard work you've been doing? Is that it? Yeah, that's all I could tell. Look like you was working hard. Even your own husband wasn't even down with this. Hey, George Conway, ain't you supposed to be keeping her occupied? Yeah, man, keep her occupied. You be all over CNN and MSNBC. Look, you got one job, and it's keep Kellyanne Conway away from cameras. Which brings me to my last nominee, Megyn Kelly. Who decided to go the Laura Loomer route of attack. Now, the reactionary thing to do would be to go back at Megyn Kelly.
Because I am a woman, an adult human female. Because for far too long, I failed to see the harm and therefore helped cause it. To the women and men who helped open my eyes, thank you.
But in this case, I don't want to do that because I am so grateful that she did this. I'm so happy Megyn Kelly did this because if she hadn't, I wouldn't have known she allegedly had an affair with Brit Hume. And there's a lovely little tale about her twirling for Roger Ailes. Imagine coming for Kamala Harris and a Brit Hume allegation and Roger Ailes twirl lands on your head. Thank you for coming. Brit Hume, look, a lot of people have slept their way to the top, but they picked much better candidates than Brit Hume. They had a much better time doing it than Brit Hume. I can tell you that right now. That's like me sleeping to the top with Ann Coulter and Laura Ingraham. No disrespect, Dinesh D'Souza and Jimmy Walker. Now, you refuted these allegations, saying you hate people think that you slept your way to the top, but this is exactly your route of address with other women. Why would that be your route of attack when you hate that other people think that you slept your way to the top? So it's something that's too good for you, but it's not something that you're above putting on Kamala Harris. Is that what it is? I also want you to take note that we have 1, 2, 3 women. Okay, well, 2 women and Laura Loomer that chose to slut shame Kamala Harris. The highest of pick-me behavior, the absolute highest of pick-me behavior, which is just sad. It's just sad because you realize when you start to exhibit pick-me behavior, that is when you have reached the peak of threatened. Like, you are absolutely threatened, which, if you're on the left side of the aisle, is phenomenal. They weren't feeling this way a week ago, and we know it. Now, first, I would like to take a moment to recognize Sonia Massey, the 36-year-old Illinois black woman who had called 911 for help with what she perceived as a prowler and ended up deceased on the floor of her home thanks to the very police that she called. The police that she greeted at the door by saying, "Please don't hurt me." You couple that with the fact that her last words were sorry, and you have something that's going to impact me in a very significant way. Those of you that have been watching the channel for a very long time, I've spoke at length about Elijah McClain and the reasons why that loss touched me and hurt me so much. The fact that he was saying, "I'm sorry," as he was being killed, literally. And the reason why that hurt me so much is because he really was internalizing his own brutality. He thought in that moment, or at least he vocalized in that moment, that in some way he was responsible for his own brutality. And when you greet the police by saying, "Please don't hurt me," and your last words being sorry, you echo that exact same sentiment and you engender that exact same response in me. We found out later that the man who shot her, Sean Grayson, the 30-year-old Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy who has since been fired while being indicted by a grand jury last week on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count each of aggravated battery with a firearm and official misconduct in connection with the shooting on July 6th, didn't activate his body camera until after he had fatally shot Massey. The other deputy had activated his body camera when he first arrived at the scene. And in that body cam footage, Grayson could be heard telling his partner that Massey wouldn't need medical help immediately after the shooting. Grayson later goes to his vehicle to get his own medical supplies. And when he gets back to the house, he asks if there's anything he can do. And he's told no, to which he says, "All right, I'm not even going to waste my med stuff then." This was a man who records show worked at 6 different law enforcement agencies in 4 years after being charged twice with a DUI in 2015 and 2016. Now, just the first part of that, having worked at 6 different agencies in 4 years, would be disqualifying for a lot of jobs that require a lot less competence than walking around with a gun and a license to use it. Somehow, working for 6 agencies in 4 different years wasn't a red flag for this man to give him a license to kill. Not to mention the fact that you couple that with the DUIs and you have a man who I can only wonder why he was deemed to be qualified to walk around with a badge and a gun. There's also the fact that, according to Sonia Massey's family, they were initially told that her death was self-inflicted. They were told that this woman had taken her own life in the initial accounts from the police. So I have to ask, how many times do we have to have the initial reports from the police completely contradict what comes out later in footage or what the official report becomes before we stop taking these initial reports as gospel? Because for me, it's not very many. It's not very many at all. If you have a friend, if you have a relative, if you have a coworker who tells you something that is repeatedly proven not to be the case, how long would it take you to stop taking what they say as gospel? I'm not even saying to assume what they're saying is a lie. There's a long way from assuming what they say is a lie from assuming what they say is the truth. I'm saying in that space in between is the ability to not receive the information they're giving you as necessarily exactly the way it went down. Our refusal as a country, okay, our refusal to move off of taking what they say as absolute gospel is why we are continually in this place. This report is exhaustive, way too long, and absolutely heartbreaking. Now, this seems like a pretty cut and dry case to the point that I haven't seen a whole lot of pushback from the back the blue, no matter what crowd. But there was one whose anti-blackness runs so deep, she can even back an agency hopping, drunk driving, no assistance giving officer who shot a woman who opened the door after calling for help and saying, "Don't hurt me." And that one is today's nominee, Candace Owens. Okay, roll the clip.
Of course, as I have said since the beginning of time, there are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen.
Ooh, we are starting out hot. Mistakes that happen. There are mistakes that happen. Police are people. Okay. When those mistakes result in a loss of life, there is supposed to be a reaction for that. There is supposed to be some justice associated when those mistakes result in a loss of life. Let's take our Officer Grayson and his record, for instance. The man has 2 DUIs, yet he was deemed fit in order to be an officer and walk around with a badge and a gun. Now, if those DUIs had resulted in loss of life, I don't know that to be the case. I believe that our criminal justice system is built to have some bend when there is a loss of life.
There are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen.
Some mistakes are not equal to other mistakes. I also find it fascinating that at no point is there ever mistakes happen and that's applied to the person who got shot. That's never applied to the civilian who meekly opens the door saying, please don't hurt me. We can't make mistakes, but the people that are trained to handle these situations whatever happens, happens. They can make mistakes, but we can never make mistakes. This is always only applied in one direction.
Police officers are human beings.
Police are people too. So what exactly was Sonia Massey?
The idea that now you're going to use this situation, and all the usual suspects are already involved, we know that Attorney Crump is already involved, to then try to make Black Americans believe that this happened simply because she was Black is pointedly ridiculous. So I am saying to Black Americans today, do not take this bait. Yes, what happened in this situation, I think he's going to have a very hard time, this officer, saying that he absolutely felt so threatened by boiling water that the only solution was for him to mindfully say, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and that's what he did. I think that's going to be a very steep hill to climb. But the reaction from Black America cannot be exactly what they want. There is a reason that whoever is in control of Joe Biden's account instantly tweeted about this, okay? It's because they think we're stupid. They think we're emotional. They think that we always respond illogically and emotionally.
Stupid, emotional, and illogical. That would be kind of like consistently coming to the defense of officers whenever this happens, right? That would also be no matter what the circumstances are, even circumstances that you yourself admit don't make any sense, and he's going to have a tall hill to climb to defend himself. Even in that moment, you will still find a way to turn on a camera and give a fervent defense to the officers. Stupid, emotional, illogical. That tracks.
There is a reason that whoever is in control of Joe Biden's account instantly tweeted about this, okay? It's because they think we're stupid. They think we're emotional. They think that we always respond illogically and emotionally, and that it's an easy way for them to shore up votes by saying, oh, look, forget that we've destroyed everything around you and that we got you to burn down your neighborhoods, burn down your neighborhoods in 2020. And then obviously stole a bunch of money because none of that money actually went to making your neighborhoods better.
This is amazing. This is amazing. Absolutely incredible. So it was Joe Biden, it was the Democrats, it was the people looking for criminal justice reform. They were the ones that got you to burn down your neighborhoods. So it wasn't your pushback to wanting to be seen as a whole person that created the frustration that boiled over in 2020. It was the people doing the pushing. It was the people wanting us to feel like whole human beings. I would love to see that math. I would love to see that math.
Look, another video, and this means racism is back, and vote for us because we're going to show you how emotional we are. And that's exactly what Joe Biden did. He tweeted this on the heels. He wrote, Sonia Massey, a beloved mother, friend, daughter, and young Black woman, should be alive today. Sonia's death at the hands of a police officer reminds us that all too often Black Americans face fears for their safety in ways many of the rest of us do not. Sonia's family deserves justice. I am heartbroken for her children and family as they face this unthinkable and senseless loss. Jill and I mourn with the rest of the country, and our prayers are with Sonia's families, loved ones, and community during this devastating time. Okay, again, going to say here, this happened in Springfield, Illinois, that the only reason whoever is in control of his account is putting that out there is because too many Black Americans are turning toward Trump. They think too many Black Americans are catching on to the Democrat scam, and so they scan every one of these situations.
Too many Black Americans are turning towards Trump, so that's why Biden felt the need to tweet this. Well, then it would have made all the sense in the world for Trump to tweet this, right? To endear himself to Black America. Did Trump tweet something? Did Trump tweet about Sonia Massey? Does his Truth Social account work? Oh wait, it does, because he saw fit to post this. Oh yeah, he had time to post this, but he didn't have time to post about Sonia Massey. That's weird. I would say that's weird, you know, for somebody that obviously is receiving so much love from the black community to further entrench himself, that he wouldn't have posted that because he surely finds way to exploit other crimes. I mean, let this have been a migrant. Let this have been a migrant. Let this have been an immigrant or anybody vaguely brown. You know how fast he would have posted about that? Because that fits his narrative. Yeah. Hell, he would have posted about this if Grayson was dusty enough.
They think too many black Americans are catching on to the Democrat scam, and so they scan every one of these situations and they leave out the hard facts. And the hard facts are that if you examine this just based on a percentage rate, white Americans unarmed are more likely to be shot and killed by police officers in mistakes, shot and killed by police officers in these correspondences than black Americans. That is a fact. It is an inescapable fact. There's no way to examine the statistics and not come out with that understanding, okay? And they don't want you to know that.
Who told you that, Candace? Huh? Who told you? Was it the Heritage Foundation? Was it Patriot Front numbers and stuff? I need to know who told you that. They don't want you to know that because it's patently false. I will give you this against my best judgment. I actually went and did some research. Black people who account for 13% of the U.S. population accounted for 27% of those fatally shot and killed by police in 2021, according to Mapping Police Violence. Now, how you get from 13% of the population to accounting for 27% of those fatally shot and killed by police and still say that white people are statistically more likely to be shot and killed by police. How you do that math? Now, I will give you this. If you want to now account for police interactions, right? If you want to account for arrests and the frequency and propensity that black people have for encountering police, then those 13 and 27 numbers get a whole lot closer. However, that would be to hold the black community responsible for the over-policing of their own neighborhoods. Is that what you want to do? Huh? Is that what you want to do to make your numbers look better? Is to hold black people accountable for their own over-policing. That would be like holding you accountable from getting fired from the Daily Wire. So what? I happen to agree with your side of things when it comes to how everything went down. Hey, the facts is the facts and the numbers is the numbers. And I would also like to add that that blanket immunity that Trump touted that he was willing to give police officers would come into play in a case like this, where a guy with 2 DUIs who has hopped with 6 different agencies can open the door to a woman saying, "Don't hurt me," and not render aid after he shoots her in the head. This is the kind of officer Trump wants to make sure walks away scot-free.
We're going to give our police their power back, and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution. So they're not prosecuted for doing their job.
Today's nominee, it ain't a new one, Donald Trump. No, actually, this isn't about all the DEI stuff.
Yeah, and then there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is. And the party's going downhill if it's in her hands.
That was tough. That was harsh.
Oh, the fact that he says Kamala. Yeah, no, this isn't even that, but I will get around to those. He got another one coming.
Radical, liberal, Kamala Harris gets in. And by the way, there are numerous ways of saying her name. They were explaining to me, you can say Kamala, you can say Kamala. I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what I say. I couldn't care less. If I mispronounce it or not, I couldn't care less.
No, I got a notification on my Boost Mobile. Trump's nephew, Fred Trump III, says Donald Trump regularly used the N-word and said about disabled people, maybe those kinds of people should just die. So I clicked on the link, and here we have this Washington Post article. Donald Trump's nephew asked questions about racism in new memoir. Let's dig in, shall we? Conspicuously placed in the latest Trump family tell-all is an anecdote that takes on greater relevance since President Biden bowed out of the presidential race on Sunday and endorsed Vice President Harris as his successor, setting up the near certainty that Harris will be the first black woman to head a national ticket and will face off against former President Donald Trump in November. As told by Fred C. Trump III, the former president's nephew, in All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way. All in the Family. I kind of like that title. Yeah, because Donald Trump, he's definitely an Archie Bunker. But wait, would that make Melania Edith? Huh? Because I would hate to see Edith in some of those photos. Wait, would that make Tim Scott George Jefferson? No, Byron Donalds? Huh? No, you know what? No, we're not going to disrespect Weezy like that. No, we're not going to disrespect Weezy. I like the title at first, but then it doesn't work for the blacks. But then again, very little about Trump world works for the blacks, and that is why he's a nominee for Racist of the Week. The article continues. Someone had slashed a 2-foot gash in the soft top of his Uncle Donald's beloved Cadillac Eldorado convertible. Donald Trump was furious. He called over his young nephew to take a look. Though Donald Trump could not have known who did it, he disgustedly blamed black people, twice using the N-word to describe those he believed to be culprits. You mean to tell me that based on absolutely no information, he just started tossing around ends and blaming black people out of nowhere? That is wild. Where have I seen him act like that before? I knew that was a bad word, Fred Trump, who spells out the pejorative in full in his book, recalls thinking at the time. Fred Trump's vividly detailed recollection of that day, which he writes took place when he was a preteen in the early 1970s, when Uncle Donald was in his mid to late 20s, prompts him to ponder whether his uncle was a racist. The author cuts his uncle a bit of a break, noting that in those days, people said all kinds of crude, thoughtless, prejudiced things. He also did some equivocating, hyperbolically writing that in one way or another, maybe everyone in Queens was a racist then. Well, I will give you this. The 1970s was a wild time. But Queens is also a wild place. I don't know how much has changed. Fred's inclusion of the anecdote would have had much greater punch if he could have shown a pattern of racially inappropriate remarks by his uncle and private family encounters. After all, he writes at great length about the many and frequently toxic Trump gatherings he attended with Uncle Donald over the years. He dedicates an entire chapter to race and throws out enough examples to make it clear he leans towards yes when it comes to the question of racism in his family, but he doesn't quite say it directly. Now, we get into all of these specific references of racism that Fred puts in the book. I just wanted to put a pin in this right now, where we have a presidential candidate where his family leans towards yes when debating, is he racist? How is this where we are in 2024? How is it? I don't recall Mitt Romney or George Bush, either one of them, or John McCain, anybody in their family being like, I think he's racist. If you put a gun in my head, I would say, I would go ahead and say he's racist. These are the conversations that we are having. He recounts how his grandfather, the family patriarch Frederick C. Trump Sr., would use a Yiddish word considering an anti-black slur. He also revisits the well-plowed Justice Department accusations of discrimination against black lease applicants at Trump-owned apartments, which ended in the 1970s with a consent decree and a no admission of guilt. He touches on Donald Trump's over-the-top demands for harsh punishment for the black and Latino youths known as the Central Park Five, who were wrongfully convicted of assaulting a white female jogger in the late 1980s. He even dips back to the 1920s to recount the lesser-known incident of his grandfather being arrested for failing to disperse at a Ku Klux Klan rally. This is so much evidence, it would have to be a 2-part episode of Law & Order. Like, they couldn't fit all this They couldn't fit all this in that one segment in Law and Order. In fact, if I was watching, I'd be like, this is too much evidence. Like, they really hit me over the head with this. Who wrote this one? Who wrote this? You don't need all that evidence to convict. You got all that evidence. Why are you wasting my time with everything that happened before this? Also, how come Rollins been with everybody but Tutuola? I'm going to need Donald Trump's black friends. That means Tim Scott. That means Byron Donalds. That means Ben Carson. That dude with The Process who was singing him Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Trump. Happy birthday.
The dude with the Ends for Trump t-shirt.
I support Trump against this corrupt two-tiered justice system.
The black dude on Fox News.
Number one, she has not had her record exploited heavily because people thought and marginalized her. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority.
I'm going to need y'all to answer for this. How do you explain your support for a man with this litany of history? I mean, I just need to understand. I just need to understand how you make sense of that in your own head. I made sense of it in mine. I know where you're coming from.
How could this have happened? A black white supremacist.
I know exactly what the grift is. I just need to know what you're telling yourself. But in rooting around, literally and figuratively, he finds no Klan robes in his grandfather's closets and no racist literature, and he doesn't share any instances of the N-word being used in the family, though he does remind us where Woody Guthrie, the renowned folk singer who lived in a Trump-owned apartment in the 1950s, stood on the Trump race question. Guthrie's song Old Man Trump features the lyrics, "I suppose that old man Trump knows just how much racial hate he stirred up in that blood pot of human hearts." They singing folk songs about how racist this man is, and y'all still trying to have a debate. I mean, really, they were celebrating it. They were reveling in it. They probably had little feather dresses, drinking old fashions, listening to that Woody Guthrie toasting just how racist we could really be. In 2020, his younger sister, Mary Trump, who holds a doctoral degree in clinical psychology, wrote a bestseller, Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. You might know Mary Trump from gems such as these.
Despite having no evidence for making this claim, Katie Tur of MSNBC said during Donald's first appearance at the Republican convention that he was humbled. Okay, first of all, this is not journalism. This is evidence-free supposition. Second, considering the man doesn't have an ounce of humility in his entire body, that's a bit of a stretch. Seriously, I mean, there's no circumstance under which this man has ever felt humility or been humbled. If you look closely at the picture I'm about to show you, that is the look of a man who is completely and pleasantly shocked that he keeps getting away with everything. That's not humility or humbleness or anything but smugness. I have evidence. Check this out.
Wait, did that just say a couch? Okay, back to the issue at hand. Now, I laid out the racist case against Donald Trump months ago. Household median income was higher for black people before Trump. His administration had low rates of black home ownership and low black male labor force participation rates, and his inaction in addressing the coronavirus pandemic ravaged black people all throughout 2020, exacerbating already existing inequities in our healthcare system. Then there was the fact that he bragged that 7 million people stopped receiving assistance through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, but didn't mention why, because they raised the requirements, which you can do when you resurrect that whole welfare queen trope from the Reagan era, which wasn't the only thing that he got from Reagan. And no, this is not about Nancy, although as somebody who grew up with the DARE program, that was quite the reveal. The link to that video is in the description. And that was before the Apprentice leak.
But wait, there's more.
I'm trying to find out at least what context it was used in to help us maybe try to figure out a way to spin it. I said, well, sir, can you think of any time that this might have happened? And he said no.
Well, that's not true.
He goes, how do you think I should handle it? And I told him exactly what you just said, Marissa, which is, well, it depends on what scenario you're talking about. And he said, well, why don't you just go ahead and put it to bed?
Here you have not one, not two, but 3 black women out here discussing how to spin the fact that Donald Trump dropped an N on a black man. And I especially appreciate the question, trying to figure out what context he used it and exactly how to spin it. That came from Katrina Pearson. So what kind of context were possible in your mind for how he could have used it? You thought he might have just been rapping to F the police? Is Donald Trump somebody that's been known to rap along to NWA and Public Enemy in his spare time? And this story. And yet y'all still want to make excuses. Hey, Black Lives Maga, right? Now, as bad as this was, the blurb actually gets worse for Donald. In 2009, nephew Fred turned to Uncle Donald for money. Indeed, we learned that Donald and his living siblings, Marianne, Robert, and Elizabeth, established a medical fund to help cover the cost of care and treatment for Fred's son, who had been battling debilitating seizures. It begins with that first conversation about the medical fund. Uncle Donald wanted to know something about his nephew's son, Fred writes. What's the problem with him anyway? Like, what's wrong with him? When his nephew told him that the doctors didn't really know, but that it's some kind of genetic thing, Uncle Donald was taken aback. Not in our family, Fred recalls his uncle saying, there's nothing wrong in our genes. Now, I think it's important to keep in mind this conversation was had a long time ago. Like, I would have thought that Donald Trump would have thought maybe it's something wrong with his genes, the fact that he got bone spurs and he looked how he looked when he on the golf course. I would have thought he would have maybe got an indication something was wrong. But clearly, looking at Eric and Don Jr., I would think he would answer that differently now. Like, I definitely think Eric and Don Jr. really opened his eyes to the reality of those genes. But what's interesting and somewhat unexpected is that Uncle Donald, whom Fred had essentially accused of stealing from him and his sister, turns out to be the most generous contributor to the fund, the only sibling who consistently pumped money into it. And yet, Fred also remembers a moment of great cruelty when he once reached out about the cost of his son's care. I don't know, Uncle Donald told him. He doesn't recognize you. Maybe you should just let him die and move down to Florida. Wow. Donald Trump speaking that way about his own family who is suffering. It tracks. It absolutely tracks. And how insane is it that I can say that about a man running for president? And yeah, I know what absolutely none of you are thinking. He would never say something like that. Remember this?
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said.
Because I do. And the winner is, That's for you to tell me. Let me know who you think should be the racist of the month. Drop it in the comments or email me at reese@reesewaters.com. And look out for that poll in the community tab. Of course, moving forward, it's going to get busier between now and November. That's all I know. I mean, either way that goes, it's going to get ugly.